questions in India are being raised over the expansive elections that are still continuing in West Bengal. 4 phases still left.
BJP has decided that only small public meetings with not more than 500 people will be held by the Prime Minister and other union ministers in the state of West Bengal.
The Prime Minister, Mamata Banerjee, as well as Rahul Gandhi and many other leaders have decided to cut down the political rallies and campaigns.
I'm Pallavi Ghosh, and this week's One Take is on a very grim story and asks this question: shouldn't our politicians be more responsible? Why am I saying so? This is because elections and campaigning is full on in the state of West Bengal. Many more phases to go, and there is a worry that there could be a huge COVID spread. Shouldn't our Netas have begun to cut down on the huge road shows and the rallies? The first COVID elections, I would say, was that of Bihar. Elections were called amidst this whole concern that whether they actually should be held, but there were constitutional requirements because of which they could not be avoided. There was full protocol in place, at least that's what they claimed. And in that, for example, sanitizers, gloves and masks were all encouraged to be used. But were they? Well, almost not. There were huge campaigns, there were huge road shows, political parties were flaunting the crowds. But when they were flaunting all this, they were forgetting one basic fact, which is a basic fact of COVID protocol. There's supposed to be social distancing. People are supposed to be away from each other. But politicians are politicians. They want their votes, even if it is at the cost of your health. Well, that election was done and dusted, and the trauma had to be gone through by the Aam Aadmi. There was a massive rise in the COVID cases. Few testing during election times meant the reality would never come out in the open. Soon memory is weak, it goes away, people tend to forget about it. There was a lull as far as the COVID scare was concerned, till COVID has now come back in a fiercer and a more contagious form. And all of this in the midst of the 8-phase long West Bengal elections. When I ask you that can politicians stay away, there are more reasons than one why I think they cannot, because even health and COVID becomes a political issue. The first alarming bell was sounded when many of the experts started pointing out that Bengal was sitting on a kind of a time bomb. Once elections are over here, huge figures will come. In fact, even in the midst of these elections, we are seeing an almost 4-figure rise in the number of COVID cases. There was this demand that the remaining last 3 phases should be clubbed together so that it's all done on one single day, because there are not too many seats there. There are not too many, areas to be covered, and therefore it was doable. Sources in the Election Commission, in fact, told me that they were drawing up a blueprint on whether this was a possibility which could be actually dwelt upon. And apparently it was. All they would require is extra forces, which centre would certainly not have a problem in giving them. But this is where the politics came in. The moment TMC leaders and Mamata Banerjee started making the point that they should be actually clubbing together the phases, questions marked were raised. Is she saying this because, and that's what her opponents wondered, because the last 3 phases are considered to be her phase? It's a minority dominated phase. Many of them are urban parts, and therefore she feels that she can get away with it and it will be very useful for her. The BJP started having doubts. There was a delegation which goes to Election Commission, and there the BJP in its memorandum makes it very clear that at most there should be COVID protocols. You cannot cut down on a campaigning side. You cannot run a phase which goes to the benefit of only one political party. And here, of course, they were inferring that the TMC was looking at its own gain. So what happened? The EC comes out with guidelines, use sanitizer masks. Now, I have been at several of these polling booths in all the phases. No denying, sanitizers, gloves, masks have actually been provided to the people who are at the polling booth. But what happens outside? Huge lines. Endless lines, much longer than where I'm standing now, right way behind. No social distancing there. Most of them are not even wearing a mask because they believe there's no COVID as far as West Bengal is concerned, because after all, they're taking a lesson from our Netas, and they're all huddled together. There have been several examples, not just in India, even abroad. The most startling and the most memorable example is that of the US elections. Remember, Donald Trump has lost, and one of the main reasons why he lost was because it was felt that he had just not managed COVID. He said that, you don't need to wear a mask. He never wore a mask. He made fun of his opponents who were wearing a mask, for example. There were warning signs that you cannot have such big congregations where you campaign, you reach out. Their style of elections, of course, is very different from ours, but nonetheless, they do have those kind of a town hall meetings where there were a large number of people who come and attend. So there were warning signs, please avoid it. You know, you're the world's largest democracy in a sense. You also have to set an example. You're a superpower, but he thought he was a superpower himself. So elections can carry on the way it is. He told people not to be scared, don't worry. This is something which we can live with and we can do it. It's called the Trumpian defense, so to say. The result was all to see. US topped the charts when it came to the largest number of deaths, corona cases as well. I don't think our politicians have still learned the lessons. Elections will come and go. Elections keep taking place in our country. COVID scare is not going to go away anytime soon. Should there be a protocol in place? You know, the EC, for example, has come out with certain guidelines which says try and avoid big rallies, try and have as many digital rallies as much as you can, or door-to-door meetings. See, the style and color of elections in a country is such where Netas love the huge crowds. They love people reaching out, moving along in, batches and with a lot of crowd behind them, road shows on trucks and tempos and so on and so forth. And therefore, the whole idea of a digital campaigning is something which many politicians don't like. In fact, one of them I asked that why don't you also take the lead? Like, for example, the Congress party Rahul Gandhi has said that I'm not going to go for rallies. They scorned by telling me, listen, one, he does not have too much of a crowd. So, and they don't not much of a player as far as West Bengal is concerned. He can afford to say no to rallies. We can't. Second, why should we give our edge to our main opponent? I'm not telling you which political leader I was talking to, but they told me, you can guess, I'm not going to give that edge to our opponent by not having these big bang rallies and road shows, because we also need to show that people are coming to our rallies, they're coming for our road shows. The crowd becomes a barometer for our success, for electoral success, and that point we are going to make to our voters, we need them. So where's the solution? The solution actually lies with the people who are actually breaking the solutions, which is our politicians. They don't want to take the lead. They don't want to make that difference. Over here, elections are going to come to stay. But why West Bengal? Look at other state elections as well. Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. It was pretty much the same thing. Unmasked leaders, because they felt we need to show our face. One leader, in fact, goes ahead and says that, how will my constituency or my voters recognize me if I don't wear a mask? Now, what can you say to those people? All rules have to be followed by the voters, nothing for our politicians. Tamil Nadu, huge crowds, all of them were broken. This whole debate has now been thrown up. It's something which I've asked on my social media timeline as well. What about big, festivals, big religious festivals, for example, whether it's the Kumbh Mela, whether it's Ramzan? Shouldn't there be a similar protocol? That was not followed. As far as elections go, again not followed. What can our Netas do? Plenty. For a start, wear your mask. Second, don't get worried. Crowds may not necessarily give you that kind of a strength. Your strength actually will come if people appreciate you and they go to a polling booth. Unfortunately, COVID, health, never really becomes a health issue. It may have in America, but I have my doubts in these elections. Anyone was even talking about COVID as a health issue or as an electoral issue. If it has now been spoken about in West Bengal, it is because each political party wants to take a pot shot at the other. TMC is using this to hit back at the Prime Minister and at the BJP. The concern perhaps is not for COVID or people so much. It is for the brownie points that they want to make. Till these big health hazards, people's issues don't become the core political issue, till a political party doesn't lose out because they've not been able to deliver to people as far as health concerns are concerned, I don't think our politicians are ever going to learn a lesson, leave alone teaching it to people. I do give in your reactions. What do you feel about it? Because many of you must be having someone close by who have gone through COVID. Do give us your thoughts, share it on our social media timeline as well. Thank you so much. We're going to be back again with much more next week.